smirking as he snorted, "We needed it more than you, so stop crying over spilled milk." My entire life savings, the money meant for my future, drained to the absolute last penny. When I picked up the phone to report the theft, my own family surrounded me, calling me selfish, heartless, and a traitor to my own bloodline. They actually expected me to smile and bear the loss. Trembling with an anger I had never felt before, I slowly reached into my bag, looked my brother-in-law dead in the eye, and whispered, "Then you won't mind what's coming next." They all burst out laughing, mocking my empty threat. But their laughter was cut brutally short when a loud, terrifying bang shook the entire house. The front door flew open, and, well, let's just say their smiles vanished instantly. To understand how a family could completely turn on their own flesh and blood, we have to go back to the very beginning. My name is Elena. I'm 27 years old, and for the past 5 years, I have worked tirelessly as an independent accountant. While most people my age were spending their paychecks on vacations, luxury cars, or expensive weekend getaways, I was living a quiet, incredibly disciplined life. I spent late nights analyzing tax codes and early mornings managing client portfolios, all with a single, burning dream in mind: purchasing my own home and securing a bulletproof financial future. Every single dollar I saved felt like a brick building the foundation of my independence. But while I was working myself to the bone, a dark cloud was quietly gathering over our family dynamics, and its name was Victor. Victor is my brother-in-law, married to my older sister, Lydia. From the moment he joined our family, he wore an obnoxious mask of unearned confidence. He was the ultimate smooth talker, always bragging about vague, high-stakes business investments and acting as though he was a financial genius. In reality, Victor was nothing more than a reckless spender who treated everyone else's success as his personal backup fund. He hid his deep entitlement behind a toxic phrase my parents absolutely loved: family solidarity. To them, Victor could do no wrong. Before we dive into the exact moment the trap was sprung, I am so incredibly glad to have you here with me today. Please follow my story until the absolute end, because the twist will genuinely leave you speechless. Right where you're watching from, how far my story has reached across the world. Now, let me tell you how this illusion of family harmony shattered into a million pieces. The house was filled with the warm aroma of roasted garlic and the bright sound of laughter as my family gathered for our annual summer reunion. As the host, I wanted everything to be absolutely perfect. I spent hours prepping the backyard, setting up string lights, and ensuring everyone had a drink in hand. Because people were constantly drifting in and out of the main living areas, I decided to keep my work laptop, personal keys, and handbags safely tucked away in my home office at the end of the long, quiet hallway. It was a space I rarely let guests enter, a strict boundary meant to keep my professional life separate from family chaos. As the afternoon turned into evening, I noticed a strange, repetitive pattern. Victor kept disappearing from the backyard patio. I'd look around to hand him a fresh drink or invite him to join a conversation, and he would be nowhere to be found. A few minutes later, I caught a glimpse of him slipping quietly out of the back hallway, casually adjusting his watch and offering a smooth, distracting compliment to my mother. At the time, I felt a slight flutter of unease in my stomach, but I quickly dismissed it. I didn't want to be hypercritical or spark unnecessary family drama during a beautiful celebration. I told myself he was just taking private business calls. The party finally wound down around 9 in the evening. After the last car pulled out of the driveway, the heavy silence of the house settled in. I kicked off my shoes, poured a glass of water, and walked into my office to pay the catering vendor through my banking app. I opened my laptop, typed in my secure password, and waited for the main dashboard to load. But when the screen finally flashed white, my breath caught entirely in my throat. My primary savings account, the place where my hard-earned home down payment lived, had been completely emptied out. The balance glared back at me in cold, digital text: $0. My hands shook so violently I could barely grip the mouse. As an accountant, I knew how to track digital footprints, and it did not take me long to find the transaction history. A single, unauthorized wire transfer had routed my entire life savings directly into a business account named Vanguard Ventures, a known failing shell company owned entirely by Victor. I did not wait. I called an immediate emergency family meeting right there in my living room. My parents and Lydia arrived within 20 minutes, looking annoyed rather than concerned. But when I slammed my laptop onto the coffee table, I demanded to know why Victor had stolen my money, and the room went completely cold. Instead of the shock or outrage I expected from my family, Victor simply leaned back on my sofa, crossed his legs, and let out a soft, mocking chuckle. The false mask of the polite brother completely dropped, revealing the ugly arrogance beneath. He looked at me with pure disdain and snorted that unforgettable line, "We needed it more than you, so stop crying over spilled milk." I gasped, turning to my parents for help, but the betrayal cut even deeper than I ever thought. My mother sighed heavily, waving her hand dismissively. "Elena, do not be so dramatic. Victor is facing a temporary business crisis. You have a stable job and no kids to feed. It is just money." My father nodded in agreement, his voice hardening as he glared directly down at me. "We are family, Elena. You are being incredibly selfish for making a scene over material wealth when your sister's household is drowning. Think about the family name. We demand you drop this matter immediately." Standing alone in my home, I realized they had chosen to protect a thief. The stinging weight of their words left me speechless, but as the initial shock subsided, a cold, unwavering resolve took its place. They had a blank check to exploit my life's work. They thought I would quietly swallow my grief just to preserve their fragile illusion of family peace. But they had profoundly miscalculated. The very next morning, ignoring the endless barrage of tearful phone calls from Lydia and angry voicemails from my father, I walked straight into the local financial crimes precinct and filed a formal grand larceny report. I handed over the wire transfer receipts, the bank statements, and the digital logs detailing the theft. When the news reached my family, their gaslighting campaign shifted into absolute overdrive. My phone buzzed every few seconds with toxic text messages. My mother called me a cold-hearted monster, while my father sent a lengthy email threatening to officially disown me if I didn't immediately withdraw the report. They claimed I was actively ruining Victor's life over a simple mistake. But as an accountant, I don't believe in simple mistakes. I believe in data. To prepare a bulletproof file for the investigators, I sat down at my desk and began running a deep forensic audit on all historical accounts connected to our family assets. That was when I uncovered a twist that made my blood run completely cold. Victor hadn't just stumbled into my account during the reunion. He had been using cloned financial credentials and forging signatures for over a year. He had quietly drained my parents' remaining retirement funds and heavily leveraged their home with unauthorized secondary loans. The thief they were blindly defending had already ruined them, and they didn't even know it yet. The air inside my living room was thick with tension, practically suffocating. My parents, Lydia, and Victor sat tightly packed on my sofa, looking at me not as their daughter or sister, but as an adversary who needed to be broken. They had arrived unannounced, armed with a legal waiver their chief attorney had hastily drawn up, a document stating that the wire transfer was simply a personal loan and that I wished to officially withdraw all criminal charges. Victor had that familiar, smug smirk plastered across his face, completely confident that when pushed to the edge, I would fold under the crushing pressure of family guilt. My father slammed the document onto the table, his eyes boring into mine. "Sign it, Elena. End this ridiculous circus before you destroy this family permanently. We've had enough of your selfishness." Lydia sobbed into a tissue, while my mother looked at me with cold disgust. Victor leaned forward, a dark, arrogant chuckle escaping his lips. He truly believed he had won, thinking I was far too weak to face the public embarrassment of a family scandal. They all began to mock me, laughing at my stubbornness and demanding I put pen to paper. Trembling with an icy rage, I slowly zipped my folder, looked Victor dead in his hollow eyes, and whispered the words that would end it all. "Then you won't mind what's coming next." They burst into loud, hysterical laughter, completely dismissive of my warning. But their mockery was cut brutally short when a sudden, thunderous bang shook the entire house. The front door was forcefully breached, flying wide open. Before anyone could breathe, heavily armed federal agents and local police officers poured into the room, guns drawn, shouting for everyone to put their hands where they could see them. The chaotic shouting of the tactical officers echoed through the room as Victor was instantly slammed against the wall. The smug, untouchable smirk vanished from his face, replaced by an expression of pure, unadulterated terror as the cold steel of handcuffs ratcheted tightly around his wrists. My mother shrieked in horror, and Lydia collapsed into hysterics, screaming at the police that they were making a terrible mistake. But the lead investigator ignored their cries, stepped forward, and calmly presented the official federal warrant for identity theft, bank fraud, and grand larceny. Victor's absolute downfall had officially begun. Because I had refused to back down and instead provided a meticulous forensic trail, the authorities were able to unravel Victor's entire criminal network within a matter of hours. The devastating ripple effect hit my parents next. The investigators revealed the grim truth I had uncovered in my audit. Victor had systematically forged their signatures to strip away their life savings and mortgage their beloved retirement home to the absolute limit. The very man they had blindly defended, the son-in-law they valued more than their own daughter, had financially ruined them behind their backs. The realization broke my parents completely. The arrogance left their eyes, replaced by a silent, crushing shame as they looked at me, realizing I was the only one who had tried to expose the parasite in our midst. Lydia, realizing the absolute legal and financial ruin heading her way, immediately filed for emergency divorce and asset protection to distance herself from Victor's impending prison sentence. My family was left utterly shattered, buried under the heavy weight of the consequences they had brought upon themselves. 3 months after that chaotic evening, the dust has finally settled, and my life looks completely unrecognizable. Because of the meticulous forensic documentation I provided, my bank's fraud indemnity policy kicked in, fully recovering every single dollar of my stolen savings. I used that money to officially close on a gorgeous, sunlit cottage completely out of town, a place that is entirely mine. I have blocked my parents and Lydia on every platform, choosing to protect my peace over their toxic guilt trips. Victor is currently sitting in a federal facility, facing an unavoidable 10-year sentence with absolutely no chance of early parole. Standing in my new kitchen, looking out at my peaceful backyard, I feel a profound sense of pride. The emotional cost of standing up to my own family was incredibly heavy, but the freedom and self-worth I gained back are absolutely priceless. I am no longer anyone's unpaid safety net. I am Elena, a woman who knows exactly how to defend her boundaries. What would you have done if your own family called you selfish for protecting what you earned? Would you have signed that waiver to keep the peace? Or would you have stood your ground and let that front door fly open? Every single one. If you found this story empowering, make sure to turn on notifications. Right now, I'm leaving 2 other incredible, high-retention stories on the screen that will completely surprise you. Thank you so